4 vandag hier op Radio Kansel en Radio Kaapse Kansel. En dit is Elevated, soos ek gesê het. Baie dankie dat jy saam luister vanoggend. Hoe lekker om deel te wees van die Visiothon weer eens, waar ons geld insamel en vir jou aanmoedig om te belê in ons toekoms. Nou, vir die volgende paar minute, soos ek gesê het, tot en met 12 uur, I will be encouraging you to give and I'll be sharing all your pledges with you as you contact me and let me know that you can pledge. But we also have a power-packed program in terms of content lined up for you today. So I want you to get your pen and paper ready. I'm going to share those details for you again on how you can give and why you should give to Radio Pulpit. But I also want to just alert you to exactly what we will be focusing on the program today. Our focus is the impact of crime and trauma on our children and our youth today, which of course ties in with our theme of our Visiothon. We will be talking to Lynn Forbes, who is the mother of the well-known AKA, we all know AKA Keenan Forbes, who was brutally murdered earlier this year. She's going to talk to us about the impact of crime on our youth. Them, of course, their family being victims of crime. We talk about that, and we will also be talking to Elmaree Moses, who's a social worker who specializes in trauma, about the impact of trauma on our youth and our children specifically. So all of that, Bazalwani, all of that has to happen within the next hour. So as you can hear, it's going to be quite a busy one for us. I want to encourage you today that as you are listening, and you are inspired by the conversations we are having, to remember to invest in our future, to remember that Radio Pulpit and Radio K Pulpit is the moral alternative for our nation and for the nations. Of course, these two radio stations, you can actually rely on us for hope and inspiration. We always here for you, family, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As I said, providing a moral alternative. We're all about helping you build a meaningful relationship with Christ, and we take this mission very seriously. We understand that the youth and our children are our future, and that's why I shared with you earlier this week as well, we have projects like I Am Youth. We support the Child Protection Hotline, youth counseling. We have prayer lines, the Godly Revolution Gospel Music Show, the I Am Online Learning Platform, and so much more. So here's my challenge to you today. I would like to encourage you to give, to help us to be part of the solution, to keep the radio stations on air, keep all these projects alive. And how do you do that? You do that by investing out in our future by sending an SMS with the word give and the amount you wish to give to 37871. Asseblief familie, ek vra vir julle mooi in hierdie uur. Kom ons gee, dis pydag, ek het op die regte dag gekom. Al is dit R10, al is dit R100, maak nie saak nie. Kom ons gee vandag terwyl ons luister na hierdie gesprekke. SMS die woord give, gevolg deur die bedrag wat jy wil gee na 37871 en onthou standaard SMS tariewe geld. Jy kan ook lekker saamgesels op WhatsApp. Die WhatsApp lyn is 0826572729. So as jy enige vrae het of wat dit ook al is terugvoer het, laat weet vir my 0826572729. So I just got the news that our first guest for this morning, Lynn Forbes, is on the line already. I'm going to take a very quick music break just to give you some time to settle in and to send me those SMSs as you are pledging this morning. I encourage you. We're going to be continuing the conversation, but don't forget, we are busy raising funds so that we can continue the radio stations and all those projects. So we need some hope in this country. A lot of bad things are happening, but thank God that we get to be the hope and the moral alternative to our nation. Yes, imagine 2018 with Alive or Akeko. Right after this, my family, we have the Lynn Forbes on the line.
Lost with a broken heart. You picked me up, now I'm set apart. From the ash I am born again, forever safe in the Savior's hands. You are more than my words could darkest night. Let your love be the shining light, breaking chains that were holding me. You sent your son down to set me free. Everything in this world will fade. I'm pressing on till I see your face. I will live that your will be done. I won't stop till your kingdom come. 'Cause you are my freedom. We lift you higher, we lift you higher. Your love, your love, your love, never ending. Oh, oh, oh. You are alive in us. Nothing can take your place. You are all we need. Your love has set us free.
That's the sound of Imagine 2018 with Alive Akeko. Thank you for tuning into Radio Pulpit and Radio K Pulpit. My name is Jenna-Leigh Bilong, and this, my family, is Elevated. I am now very honored, and I know everybody's so excited about this, to introduce to you Lynn Forbes. A little bit of background for those of you who don't know. Lynn Forbes is the mother, of course, of the well-known hip-hop artist AKA, who was brutally murdered on the 10th of February this year. The entire country stood still as we were all shocked and traumatized by the murder of this young African star who was putting our country and the continent on the global map through his music. So how does crime affect the lives of our youth, you ask? It robs the nation of talent, as we saw with AKA. It robs the nation of purpose and leadership. It robs the continent of its future. It robs children of their fathers and mothers of their sons. We now talk to Lynn to find out how her family is doing and get her take on the impact of crime on our young people. Lynn, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us on Radio Pulpit and K Pulpit.
Jenna-Leigh, thank you. Good morning to you too. Thank you so much for having me.
We are very excited to talk to you, but I can't start without just asking you, how are you really doing? How are you doing?
I like it when people say that, not just how are you doing, but how are you really doing. We are in mourning, we are in pain, but we are in a good space with very, very bad moments. But that's the best way I can probably describe it right now, just taking it one day at a time.
And yet somehow you still manage to get strength to get up, get dressed and face the world. I mean, you were even accepting awards recently on behalf of Keenan. You are addressing his supporters. You are doing interviews to encourage the nation. How do you get through those moments, and how do you get the strength to do all of this?
I think you need to have an understanding of what your role is. I'm, without this sounding as if I think I am, something bigger than anybody else or better than anybody else. I am the mother of AKA. For me, it's Ken, and it comes with responsibility. It comes with an understanding of what your role is and why you've been chosen to be his mom in the first place. So I don't have the luxury of staying in my room, staying in bed for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days at a time. I have a responsibility not just towards my family and his legacy and his followers and supporters. I have a responsibility towards the nation, because that is those are the people who looked up, to him and for guidance, and the youth. And there's this whole legacy, his fan base, who are also in mourning. So I also have to understand that this wasn't just my son. This was a son that did belong to the country and the world and Africa as a whole. And therefore, I do need to be cognizant of those facts.
Absolutely.
But it's hard. It's not easy. I want people to understand. People always tell me how strong and resilient and courageous I am, and I think, yes, I will take resilient and courageous, but I don't think I'm strong. I'm just a mom that's really, going through a lot of pain at the moment.
And it is your son, I mean, aka belong to the world, actually, as you said. But at the end of the day, as you alluded to now, you are also going through grief. And I like how you, even on your social media, share quite openly about your moments of grief. I do want to ask
Yes.
you, what is it that gets you through those moments and into the position where you are able to get back up again?
Uh, it is really just understanding that, you know, to be honest with you, let me be real with you, there is so much that has to be done. There is so much that has just shifted onto, firstly, my shoulders and the shoulders of the family. So I don't think I even think about it. I just know that, you know, I'm needed. There's a purpose and there's a role that I have to fulfill. And I don't know, you know, now that you're actually asking me that question, I think it's just, I get up in the morning because there's something, there's purpose. I need to get up because something has to happen. Somebody is waiting for an answer from me. I need to get to a meeting because if I don't, all of this will just fall flat. So I think it's about purpose and understanding your role. That really is it for me. It's not a lot of thought that goes into it. It's just who I am. And I think who I've been groomed in many ways, I now realize, and as I said to you, I think children choose their parents. I think I was chosen for this role. And now I need to step into that role in, you know, with everything that I can bring to it. And it's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary. I am, you know, I had a conversation with somebody yesterday, and I said, I am, at the moment, I'm fearful, actually, because I don't know. It's very uncertain. There's a lot of uncertainty that comes with it. So I want people to understand that I'm not just a strong person. I'm just a mom, and I've got a lot of fears, and I'm uncertain about certain things. But the one thing that I know without a doubt is that I'm needed, and there's purpose, and I have to fulfill that purpose and make it come to reality in terms of his legacy, for instance. And then there's a family and his daughter. You know, she's got a mom here and all of that. But I've always played a big role in her life, and he played an enormous role in her life, and he loved her so much. So I need to keep this together for her too, and for the rest of my family.
We're going to talk about Cairo and your role as Glammy in her life as well. But I want you to tell me about the role that God plays in your healing through this process.
Yes. So that's always, I think, and I'm going to be very real about this because I want to speak to people that have gone through similar things. And I think I know that I have, you know, there's also a life. I've gone through a lot of challenges, many challenges in my life. And I don't know if you know that. I'll just mention it. So I went through childhood sexual abuse as a young girl, 12 years old. And I have had a very love-hate relationship with God all my life, you know, and I've questioned God a lot, and at some point I just really didn't like God at all, and I've asked him, why do these things happen? So I have found myself, I'm getting better now with it again, but I found that because I know how to kind of get back to asking the questions. Now, firstly, I'll say to you, I've always seen myself as I've always been a very spiritual person, and I do believe in God, and I speak to God, but I don't know, you know, it's been a long time that I've really identified to any specific religion. I feel like I'm a child of God. I operate from a place of love. I think that everything that God is about, and that for me is the biggest thing that God symbolizes for me, is love and forgiveness and understanding and no judgment and that kind of thing. So I do believe I'm very much a child of God in that way, because I do the things that God would want from his children. So let me tell you what it is and how God is, the role that God has played. So I have had many questions. First, it was anger. I was just angry with God. When I heard that my son was brutally murdered, assassinated, just left to die on a street in Durban, my first reaction towards God was, not again. You haven't done it again, and I just don't know if you even exist. I don't like you. I am so angry with you. And I think that's a human reaction. If we want to be honest about it, as human beings going through trauma like that, that's your first reaction. And that went on for quite a while. And then eventually, people really would say to me, this is God's plan for your life. And, God is always there, and you must just believe that there's a plan for this. And it made me even more angry because I couldn't understand that the God that I identify with, the God that I talk to, would have that kind of plan for my life, or any of the other really terrible things that's happened in my life before, that would be his plan. So one day my son became, my son had an amazing relationship with God at the time that he died, and he spoke about it freely and openly. And his spiritual leader, Cabello Babylani, I called him, or his wife Gail. I said, I need you to come and see me because there's just so many questions. So they came and they spent some time with me and Nadia was also very angry with God, and we just sat for the whole evening and we talked, and I said to him, I'm really struggling with certain things, and I've got so many questions for God, and where is God in all of this? And I said, I just get so angry when people tell me that this is God's plan. And he said to me, no, this is not God's plan. This is not what God does. This is the work of the devil. Yeah. And it brought me peace in that moment. And I also realized that what I have been doing, I've allowed myself to be caught up in the human things, the things that people say, the things how people interpret all of that. And in all of that, I have lost track of where God sits with all of this. And then I explored it a bit more, and there was actually this movie that I watched, which I know it's just a movie. It's called The Shack, and I don't know if you've seen it before. And the one thing in there was about where God, in the movie, where the man that lost his child, God wants him to forgive the person who killed his child. And that was very, very important to me. I know it's just a movie, but for me, in that moment, it opened my eyes and my understanding of where my relationship with God should be. And because the man asked God, do you just want him to get away with murdering my child? And God said, no, nobody ever gets away with anything. There's always consequences for whatever you do. But the lesson for me in that was that as human beings, we can't be the judge of what must happen to another person that has done you wrong. And that forgiveness is actually freeing for us. It frees us more than it frees the person that has done the injustice to you. And God's role is always, because everybody's God's child. God loves all his children, and even the person who killed my son is God's child. Even the person who paid for the bullet is God's child. So for me, it gave me more peace watching that, in understanding, because I have forgiven. And I think my spirituality is what, is something that is not for me, something that I advertise in terms of, I'm this big human, this Christian person. But I have a very personal, my relationship with God is very personal, and I have conversations with God like I would have with my dad. In my car, when I'm talking, so after that movie, I had a conversation with God, not on my knees, not just saying, thank you for that lesson. Thank you for showing me and giving me that answer, because I realized that I have to forgive. I'm not the judge of somebody else's wrongdoing. And that I have to let it go, so that and I have to accept the reality of what happened to my family and to my son. Doesn't mean I can't be angry. Doesn't mean I don't feel hurt. Doesn't mean I think it's okay. Doesn't mean that I don't want justice. But it's not on my terms.
I hear you.
So that is, in a nutshell, I can go on about it for a long time. So I think that is where I am at the moment with my relationship with God. I'm exploring, and I'm looking at the signs being sent to me. I've got my son's Bible next to my bed, and I look at things that is highlighted, and I get messages through it. and I take on board what works for me. And right now, it really is also a very selfish thing. It's not about anybody else. It's not about what other people think I should be doing and how I should process this, but it's about what is working for Lynn Forbes in this moment of mourning her son, and my relationship with God for me at the moment is a very personal one.
Yeah. I must tell you, Lynn, all of us obviously were just so shocked and touched and really grieved by the passing of Keenan. But that day at the memorial, when I saw Kabelo on the stage and I heard him talking about how he's been mentoring and walking with Keenan, for some reason I found peace within myself.
Yes.
I was just happy that he found God and he found Jesus, and it might not have been a public display, but in his personal, in his inner room, he found God, he found Jesus, and we know where he is. And I pray that even through his passing, I mean, if for some reason, somehow, it could bring you closer to God and bring you healing after everything you've been through, as you spoke about earlier, then, I mean, that purpose would be even greater than the impact of millions that he had and millions of people over the years. So I'm very, very happy to hear that you are on this personal journey with God. But I want to ask you about how you feel about the impact of crime on our youth. I mean, Keenan's murder was public, and I can just imagine the trauma that you went through having to witness this horrendous crime. It was circulated all over social media. Talk to me about the impact of crime on our youth, especially out of your experience.
So firstly, out of my experience, I think let's start with social media. I think social media can be so positive, and it can have, we can use it for so much good, but I think there's the other side that's really very evil, actually, and very damaging, because having a video like that circulate on social media with no regard to how it actually affects the people that are closest to this person, and and people just clicking, and it consuming it, and just spreads all over the place. I haven't watched the full video. I decided not to, but unfortunately, because I do a lot of work on social media, I stumbled upon the shorter version, which I couldn't avoid, and I actually watched my son being executed right in front of my eyes. So it's a very painful thing. But so I do think that our society has decayed or is decaying in terms of just our principles and our values. We need to find a way back to, and I'm saying this because this is what Keenan said to me in the end when he really found God. He said, Mom, what I've understood more than anything else in this journey with God and my own spiritual development is that family is still the most important thing.
Yes.
And we need to come back to family. And I think if we could just, as a society and as the youth, find our way back to family first, and then within that, obviously, there's your and for me, there's a lot. It's not just God. Every family is different, and what we believe in, there's different religions, there's different everything. But I think once you get back to family, because the core of family is love and protection, and there's some sort of connection to a higher purpose and a higher being and a creator in every family. And those values, I think, is what we need to try and get back to.
Absolutely.
Because, and if there's one message I can send out to the youth today, is to try and find your way back to what matters, and that is the family. And within that family, you will find the connection to what God represents for you within your family. So with Keenan, for instance, I will, if I can tell the youth, because they looked up to him, is that he became a light. He, you could see that he had found something new and something different. It showed in even the way he interacted with his family. It showed in how he wanted us around him all the time. He was sad when we had to leave. His spirituality and his relationship with God brought him back to family, and it brought him, not that he ever left family, but it was just that you could see the difference, the connection. And the light that came out of him was something beautiful, and that has brought me a lot of peace. So that's another thing. So I know that his relationship to God, with God, and at the time that he left this earth, was. So I'm not sitting here. People ask me about closure, but I don't need closure. I know how my son died, but I also know where he went.
Amen. Yes, that's right.
I know where my son is, and for me, that is the most peaceful thing. Because I can see him getting up in the morning in heaven, and going around doing his, being Kenan, and he's just at peace because hell is here on earth.
Yeah.
This is where we are in hell, but Kenan is in heaven.
Yeah,
And
no,
he's at peace.
no, and I mean, we are really so afraid for our lives. There's crime everywhere. I want to ask you, and I'm hoping that our connection will last. We are running out of time. But I want to ask you, what would your advice be to mothers whose sons or daughters are also victims of crime? I mean, we see so many young people perhaps not being victims of murder, but robberies are rife. The drug problems that we are having in our communities also lead to a lot of crime. What would your advice be to mothers?
That have lost their children?
Mothers whose children are victims of crime in our communities, victims of the drug lords, victims of robberies. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's difficult. I think, when you've lost your child, I think the easiest advice I can give is you need to find a way to accept it as soon as possible so that you can go on and you don't get consumed by it. But I think in terms of mothers whose children are finding themselves in difficult situations, I think all you can really do is be there for your children and not judge them, but be there and be the person that they can reach out to and find comfort in. I think the worst thing a mother can be is become a stranger to her child.
That is so deep. The worst thing a mother can do is be a stranger to her child. I want to ask you, in closing, Lynn, what has changed in the way that you are raising Cairo in the season after what Kenan has been through, after his murder? Did anything change the way perhaps everything is still the same?
I don't think. I think we've always been a family that operates from a place of love. I think maybe a little bit. Maybe now we might here and there, allow a little bit more, spoil a little bit more, just because, But I think no. I think in fact what you need to do more, or what we are doing more, is we are more clear about the importance. Because remember, Cairo comes from a blended family, so it is about showing her even more now. I think what she has been seeing since her dad died is not division, but more unity between her mom and Bongani, her mom's new husband, or not even new, it's her first husband, Nadia, myself. So there's more. The family, because we call all of them family, we have become even tighter, even closer, and it's important for Cairo, for her safety, for her security, for her understanding of family pulls together. So I don't believe, Cairo, we didn't want to change anything. One of the first things Zintle said to me when Kenan died was, I want you to know that nothing will change. Cairo will still come and stay with you 1 week like she did before, and 1 week with me. Nothing is changing, because we have to keep everything intact for her, because as a family, we always focus on the children. And once we focus on the children, life becomes amazing. It's always our motto that the children are the focus of everything. Obviously, understanding that's also the interpersonal relationships between you and your husband, and there's boundaries and all of that. But for us, it's about creating a safe, secure place for Cairo and Asante now, because there's another child around.
Yes.
So nothing else has changed, and we are even more aware of making sure that she doesn't, because kids are very, very clever. They will know, something happened here. Maybe I can manipulate them a little bit more here and there. So you need to look out for those things as well. But at the end of the day, it's just about making sure that they are in a secure environment, and that means, keep the rules there, make sure they understand, because children operate better within a place where there's guidance.
Yes, guidance is
she
so
also
important.
Understands. Yeah, we were clear, and she also knows we're not saying, oh, daddy's with Jesus now, or this, dad, you need children of two things about children that I've learned in this for me is that they're in the moment. They very much live in the moment. So we are feeling all of these emotions, all of that. But for Tara, it's just she moves from moment to moment,
Yes.
and she lives in the moment. And then also another thing for me is that you just need to understand that. Don't try and reinvent everything. Just keep it constant.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best place for children to work from.
Keep it steady.
So
keep it
we
steady
just
for
keep
them.
it steady, and we love her. We just love her, and she knows that she's loved everywhere in all parts of this family.
And in all parts of the country as well. We're all Team
Yes.
Cairo all the way. Lynn Forbes, thank you so much. Of course, the whole court case is still going on, and we'll keep an eye on that. We're praying for you. We're praying for your family. And I pray that God will continue to bless you and use you. I think your purpose is also coming to life right now. Use you.
He's already using me.
More than ever before. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you so much. But remember, he's already using me, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
He also used you
Thank you.
mightily today. Thank you so much. If you just tuned in, that was the voice of Lynn Forbes. We're going to take a quick music break. We're going to listen to Sean P. with Channel of Blessings. But before I do that, let me thank those of you who's been giving. Joey gave 150 Rand. Dankie, Joey. Baie dankie vir dit. Jy kan steeds betaal. Dankie Richard daar wat sê hy het reeds betaal. As jy ook wil gee vandag, asseblief tog doen dit nou vir my. Stuur die woord give, gevolg deur die bedrag wat jy wil gee na 37871 standaard SMS tariewe geld.
Born to make history. I am called by the great I am. I'm gonna change the world. This is my destiny. Everything I need I have. I'm gonna change the world. Yes, in you I live, move and have my being. I am a channel of blessing. I am a channel of blessing. I'm reaching out with the splendor of your love. I'm a channel of blessing. The world declares that it is more blessed to give than to receive. Let me hear those hands. To make history. Yes. I am called by the great I am. I'm gonna change the world. Oh, this is my destiny. Everything I need I have. I'm gonna change the world. In you I live, move and have my being. I am a channel of blessing. Oh, I am a channel. Yes, I am. A channel of blessing. I'm reaching out with the splendor of your love. I am a channel. I am a channel. A channel of blessing. A channel of love. I am a channel of grace. A channel of blessing. A channel of mercy. I'm reaching out with the splendor of your love. I'm a channel of blessing. Channel of blessing. Oh, oh, oh. Dominion, authority. Oh, oh, oh. Yes, I was born for this. Oh, oh, oh. Dominion, authority. Oh, oh, oh. I was born for this. Oh, oh, oh. Let me hear you say, come on. Dominion, authority. Oh, oh, oh. I was born for this. Oh, oh, oh. Dominion, authority.
Oh yeah. Channel of Blessing by Sean P. Net hier op Radio Kansel en Radio Kaapse Kansel. Baie dankie dat jy saam luister vandag hier na Elevated. Altyd lekker om op 'n Vrydag saam met jou te kuier. My naam is Jenna-Leigh Bilong. En net om jou te herinner, ons is besig met Visiothon waar ons geld insamel vir al die verskeie aktiwiteite en projekte wat ons hier het. Soos jy weet, streef ons daarna om 'n morele media alternatief te wees. Ons is beskikbaar 24 uur per dag, 7 dae per week, wat nou reeds die goeie saad saai, sodat ons kinders in die toekoms die vrugte daarvan pluk. Ons vra vir jou vandag, belê in ons toekoms. Belê in ons toekoms deur aan Radio Kansel en Radio Kaapse Kansel te gee, sodat ons kan voortgaan om gesinne te inspireer en aan te moedig om betekenisvolle verhoudings met Christus te hê. SMS die woord give en die bedrag wat jy wil gee na 37871, standaard SMS tariewe geld. Dankie aan elkeen van julle wat al reeds gegee het. Onthou, elke bedrag help. So of dit nou R100 is, of dit nou R10,000 is, of R1,000 is, R100,000, wat ook al God vir jou in staat stel om te gee vandag, gee dit asseblief. SMS die woord give en die bedrag wat jy wil gee na 37871, standaard SMS tariewe geld. Soos ek nou vir julle beloof het, ons volgende gas vandag is Elmaree Moses. En Elmaree is 'n maatskaplike werker wat spesialiseer in traumaberading. Het jy geweet volgende week is Nasionale Kinderbeskermingsweek, wat ook so mooi inpas by ons tema vir Visiothon vanjaar. Elmaree sluit nou by ons aan op die lyn om te praat oor die impak van trauma op ons kinders. Elmaree, goeiemiddag en welkom by Radio Kansel en Kaapse Kansel.
Middag Jenna-Leigh en middag luisteraar.
Baie dankie dat jy by ons aansluit. Ons het nou 'n bietjie uit tyd uitgehardloop. Ek sou baie graag meer met jou wil praat, maar ons gaan beslis in die toekoms dit doen. Kom ons begin deur te definieer, en jy's welkom om dit in Engels of Afrikaans te doen. Definieer wat trauma is, Elmaree.
Okay. Trauma, Jenna-Leigh, is 'n gebeurtenis wat skielik en onverwags in enige iemand van ons lewens in gebeur. Trauma is nie noodwendig die storie wat met ons gebeur het, alhoewel die storie baie keer pynlik is, maar dit soos baie skrywers, onder andere Lee Van Klein sê, it is not in the event itself, rather trauma resides in the nervous system. Nou ek sê baie keer, ek is nie 'n neuroloog of 'n wetenskaplike nie, maar daar is baie waarhede in wat baie wetenskaplikes sê in terme van trauma, want trauma, soos ek nou gesê het, is nie noodwendig in die storie wat met ons gebeur het, maar dit word in die sentrale senuweestelsel opgevang, en dis waar die pyn gaan lê, en dit is waar die ongemak gaan lê. So dit in kortweg is wat trauma is.
Nou, ons het nou geluister na die gesprek met Lynn Forbes byvoorbeeld, wat sy gepraat het oor trauma wat sy deurgemaak het as jong mens, as kind, en baie keer, Elmaree, dan we're not handling the trauma. Ons ouers kry nie vir ons hulp vir die trauma wat ons deurgemaak het nie, en dan het dit 'n impak op ons lewe en ons besluite en ons verhouding met God en ons familie en ons mans vir jare en jare daarna. Hoe belangrik is dit dat ouers hulp moet kry vir hulle kinders wat geaffekteer word deur trauma?
Ja, as maatskaplike werker is my hart verskriklik baie eerstens gefokus om 'n veilige spasie vir elke kind te kry. Of die kind nou by die huis is, en of die kind nou by die skool is, en of die kind by die koshuis is, waar die kind hom of haarself bevind, is dit vir my belangrik dat daar 'n veilige spasie vir die kind geskep moet word. Nou, hoe skep ons daai veilige spasie? En ek dink baie keer hardloop ons koppe te vinnig na 'n program of te vinnig na 'n groep waar die kind veilig of gedrag moet aanleer of emosies moet aanleer, want dit is van die goeders wat geaffekteer word as gevolg van trauma. Maar my belangrike ding en eerste ding as ek kom by die hantering van trauma is om 'n veilige spasie te skep. Maar hoe skep ons daai veilige spasie? Eerstens, ons as volwassenes was ook kinders eens op 'n tyd gewees. En baie van ons is nog steeds kinders, van baie van ons ouers leef nog. So ons was ook jong kinders en jong op 'n tyd, en vandag het ons kinders van ons eie, of ons werk direk of indirek met hulle. So ons elkeen het 'n geskiedenis of 'n pakkie wat ons self moet dra, En sommige van ons pakkies het ligter geraak oor die jare, sommige is nog steeds dieselfde pakkie. En voor ek verder gaan, wil ek ook net so ietsie lees van 'n Britse sielkundige wat hy praat of wat hy sê, children are not slates from which the past can be rubbed by a duster or sponge, but human beings who carry their previous experiences with them and whose behavior in the present is profoundly affected by what has gone before. So hoekom sê ek dit? Omdat ek sê, ons kom ook van 'n geskiedenis, ons dra ook ons pakkies, ons dra ook ons pyn. So dit is vir my belangrik dat 'n veilige spasie begin by ons as volwassenes eers. Ons moet eers op 'n plek kom waar ons op 'n plek van genesing kom, op 'n plek van bevryding en ek dink ons het al in die verlede gepraat oor genesing it's a continuous process. Maar dit begin by ons as volwassenes, of ons nou die ouer is en of ons nou die onderwyser is en of ons nou selfs die terapeut is en of ons nou die toesighouer is. Genesing begin eerstens by ons alvorens ons met die kind werk. So van uit daai plek uit praat ek altyd met ouers, praat ek altyd met volwassenes dat ons as volwassenes eerstens begin met 'n plek of op 'n plek van genesing kom.
Elmaree, baie keer as ons praat van trauma, dan dink ons outomaties aan seksuele mishandeling dalk, of jy dink aan misdaad waaraan jy blootgestel is, maar daar is ook ander ervarings wat gedefinieer kan word of wat trauma kan veroorsaak in jou lewe. Wat is van daai ander ervarings?
Ek het nou 'n paar goedjies neergeskryf, want trauma is nie noodwendig die ekstreme gevalle soos seksuele mishandeling wat jy nou tereg sê, of domestic violence of dit lê ook in die vernalating van ouerskap om na jou kind te kyk. Die wat is die Afrikaanse woord? Negligence, ek weet nou nie lekker wat is die Afrikaanse woord, maar
Yes, abandoning. Abandonment, yes.
Dis een ding. Die ander ding is armoede. Daar's baie kinders in baie gemeenskappe wat armoede ervaar, wat traumaties is vir hulle. Hulle moet op oorlewing, moet hulle die lewe in die gesig gaan staar in. Daar's baie kinders wat uit dromme uitleef, daar's baie kinders wat op wie se ouers gaan bedel. So dit is 'n traumatiese ervaring vir enige persoon, ongeag waarvan af jy kom, vir my en vir jou, wat social beings is, wat mens is. Ons is geskoei daarop, ons word groot met die doel om in verhouding te leef met mekaar. En as daai verhouding nie plaasvind nie, as daai need to belong nie daar is nie, dan is dit traumaties vir die kind. Die ander ding is ook bullying by die skool. Dit is ook traumaties vir, sê byvoorbeeld vir 'n kind met 'n temperament, of enige kind, nou nie net 'n spesifieke kind met 'n spesifieke temperament. Die bullying is traumaties vir enige kind by die skool, of dit nou is tussen kinders en of dit nou is tussen onderwyser en kind. Bullying is net so 'n geval van trauma. Maar selfs trauma, ek het al gehoor van mense wat die byvoorbeeld 'n dooie persoon gaan kyk het. En selfs daai ervaring was traumaties. Dit was so dat ek iemand ken vandag wat nog steeds in 'n voertuig kan klim as gevolg van die ervaring wat sy gehad het toe sy die lijk gaan aanskou het. So dit is van die goedjies wat trauma veroorsaak in 'n mens se lewens, en nie net die seksuele trauma of jou emosionele traumas wat 'n mens mos maar elke dag van hoor.
Nou, luisteraars, Elmaree Moses is in privaat praktyk. Sy is daar in die Weskaap rond. Ons gaan nou vir jou haar besonderhede gee. Sy's 'n maatskaplike werker wat spesialiseer in trauma berading. En ek is ook opgewonde om te sê sy gaan by Vroue Onbeperk Women Unlimited wees die 2 September in Kaapstad. Ek kan nie wag nie. Elmaree, you said something so interesting to me. I think we need to have a program just focusing on this. You talked about the trauma of poverty. I mean, That is so deep. I think a lot of us, we actually need help just to overcome the trauma of poverty, and we are suffering the consequences of the trauma of poverty for years and years, and it has a sociological and psychological impact on us. Ek wil net hê jy moet vinnig met my praat oor die dienste wat jy beskikbaar het om kinders te help. Waar is jy geleë en hoe reik mense uit na jou toe?
Ja, my kantoor is in die Strand. Ek het 'n praktyk daarso en dit is vir my verskriklik lekker om met ek fokus spesifiek op kinders. My hart en my passie is om te werk met kinders. So wat ek doen is assessering, ek doen sosio-emosionele assessering met kinders en uit die assessering uit bepaal ons dan of daar verdere ondersoeke moet gebeur en of ons beplanne intervensie, met ander woorde wat vir terapie moet aangebied word na die assessering. Ek bied ook traumaterapie aan, attachment therapy en dan ook therapeutic lifestyle work, met ander woorde kinders wat uit omstandighede uitkom waar hulle aangeneem is en wat baie graag wil weet waar vanaf hulle kom, want daar's 'n groot gap, ekskuus vir die Engels en Afrikaans, but there has been left such a big gap tussen vanaf die biologiese ouers en die aanneemouers. So ek doen daai terapie ook met die kinders net om die gap bietjie kleiner te maak, om bietjie navraag te doen en uit te vind waar vanaf hulle kom en om die identiteit weer te herstel, om die selfbeeld te herstel. So dis van die terapie wat ek doen en dan doen ek ook ouerleiding, graag ouerleiding. Dis vir my verskriklik lekker net om vir die ouers bietjie raad te gee in terme van die assessering wat ek gedoen het en waar is die gaps of die gaping sien in die verhouding tussen ouer en kind. Dis ten opsigte van parental guidance en dan doen ek ook individuele konsultasie of paneelbesprekings indien nodig by skole of wie dit ook al nodig het.
En hoe kontak ons, dis wonderlike werk wat jy doen, Elmaree, hoe kontak mense vir jou indien daar dalk iemand is wat luister en van jou dienste gebruik wil maak? Soos Elmaree sê, sy kan ook by skole kom, gesels by kerke en sy kan natuurlik die berading ook bied as jy en jou kind dit nodig het. Waar kontak ons jou?
Ag, mense is baie welkom om 'n e-pos vir my te stuur by admin@elmareemoses.com.
Daar het jy dit, admin@elmareemoses.com en daar Elmaree word gespel E-L-M-A-R-E. Het ek hom reg, Elmaree?
Dis
E-L-M-A-R-E Moses. Julle weet hoe om Moses te spel. Baie dankie weer eens vir jou tyd. Ek hoop dat ons jou kan terugkry sodat ons kan praat oor die trauma van armoede en hoe om dit te hanteer. Maar soos ek gesê het, sy sal ook die 2 September by Women Unlimited in Kaapstad wees. Baie dankie vir jou tyd, Elmaree.
Baie dankie, Jenna. Goed gaan. Dankie luisteraars.
Ons gaan luister na Hannah and Paul McClure with Only Have One. It's almost time for me to say goodbye, Bazalwani, but don't forget that you can still give to Radio Pulpit, not just now, but throughout the week. SMS die woord give en die bedrag wat jy wil gee na 37871, standaard SMS tariewe geld.